Hey, here I am in Detroit with International Stacker.
What's up, guys?
It's our second meeting. Great to see you again. We met, what, 2.5 years ago, maybe 2?
I think
it was quite a while
it
ago.
was the summer of '69. No, yeah, it was a couple years ago. A coin show, right?
Yeah, and it was early on both of our channels.
Yeah.
That was the first one I ever met off of YouTube. I think both of us,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, you were the first I ever met.
Yeah,
That's right.
and just happened upon each other, which is pretty cool. So.
And we had a Lady in the Tramp moment. Remember, we both grabbed for the same silver dollar at the same time? I'm just kidding.
And so I heard that through his videos that he was in Detroit. So I'm like, dude, you want to catch up again? It's actually closer here than Grand Rapids for this trip. So, so we decided to get together for an afternoon, hang out together, and see what's going on. We're sitting at a beautiful hotel close to Canada.
I literally see the giant Canadian flag right over there waving.
Yeah. So
I tried to get TV to float across the river with me, but he wouldn't do it. I'm a refugee.
He was like, "Hey, those cushions on those chairs looks like they'd hold us. Let's go."
I mean, they float in planes. Why not in hotel lobbies, right?
So yeah, hanging out with our National Stacker. Thought we'd get a little bit of his insights, and we've already talked for a while, and he's been giving me some great advice. So I thought maybe I'd ask him a couple other things and see what he thinks. And one of them is the thoughts between being heavy in silver and light in gold. I think that's a pretty good discussion, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So I asked, why don't you again kind of run through that with us, and why you tell people you have over 6,000 ounces of silver. Yeah. Holy smokes, 6,000. I mean, I don't know where you store that stuff, but it better be a pretty strong floor. So why are you so heavy in silver and not so much in gold?
So, I see a lot more upside potential in silver, okay? So the one thing I like to say is, even if tomorrow people said, I don't want to collect coins, I don't want silver and jewelry, it has no numismatic value, governments stop making the coins, there's still huge industrial demand for silver. It's needed for electric vehicles, which are going to get more plentiful. It's needed in this phone. It's needed in flat screen TVs. It's needed for war. You know, like Tomahawk missiles, I think, have a couple ounces of silver or something in them. It's even in yoga pants. It's antibacterial. It's used in water purification. It's used in the medical industry. So as we start to shift more towards technology-based civilizations, clean tech, anything that needs to be effective in with electricity inside the mechanism, there's going to be even greater demand for silver. I truly believe, in the not too distant future, that like landfills are going to be remined, because right now every ounce of gold that's been mined is still above ground. It's on those rings, and guys, he has 2 rings, a watch, a chain. I feel like I'm meeting with the mob boss right now. But every ounce of gold is still pretty much above ground, except like some shipwrecks and stuff out there that hopefully I find one day. But silver is literally destroyed. It's thrown away. It's in landfills. So I think eventually we'll see landfills getting mined to get the metals out of them. But I think there's huge explosive potential. I also think silver is extremely depressed. Traditionally, if you looked at the gold to silver ratio, which means for every ounce of gold, how many ounces of silver equal that? So right now it's like for 1 ounce of gold, it's like 70 or 80 ounces of silver, right? Traditionally, that was like 1 for 16, 1 for 12, 1 for 20. Do I think it's actually going to get back down to those levels? No. But if you're stacking it around 1 to 60, 1 to 70, 1 to 80, 1 to 124, which it was for a little bit, and it drops to 1 to 40 or 50, that's a huge arbitrage potential, which means here's my silver, here's my gold. I have a bunch of silver, that ratio drops, then if I switch that for gold, I end up with way more gold than I would have had if I just stacked gold. And people go, well, you can't time the market, and you're not going to find people to trade. Trust me, folks. First off, you don't have to time the market perfectly. No one can do that. But if it goes from 1 to 80 and to 1 to 50, even if you trade anywhere in between there, you're going to do well. And secondly, there's always people willing to trade. Coin shops will love to trade for silver, because if I have 1 gold coin and I sell that, I'm going to make that premium. If I have 80 silver coins, I'm going to make that premium times 80. Also, if gold goes up $50 an ounce, I've made $50 on that 1 ounce. Whereas if I put that 1 ounce in silver, that I would have had 70 or 80 ounces of silver. And even if the premium is $5, 5 times 80 is a lot more than the 50 on that. So a lot of potential there, and it's really exciting. Now that I'm over 6,000 ounces of silver, I have started to get a little bit more exposure to gold. I'm still stacking silver hardcore, but I've been starting to buy more gold than I had in the past. I think if I had it all to do over again, I think for every 100 ounces of silver I bought, I would have forced myself to get a 10th ounce of gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I would have been further ahead now with gold and had a lot more lower premiums. However, I'm still happy with what I did. And I think there's a lot of potential to come. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research. But for me, gold and silver over the long run is good. If you're buying gold and silver now and trying to get out in a few months or a year, you might get screwed.
Right.
But if you're buying it for the long run, like multi-years, up to 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, even 20 years, which depending where you're at in your life, you may or may not be able to do. To me, it's a no-brainer. You look at the charts, and again, I don't look at it as investment. I look at it as a hedge against inflation, protecting your wealth. However, I think we're at a unique point in history where silver does have a unique opportunity to have explosive growth. It's going to the moon. No, I'm kidding. It's not going to the moon.
So I got another question for you. So what is your thought process? And we're going to stick with silver here for a minute. So you decide you got $500 you want to spend on silver right now. How do you decide what to buy? How do you know if you're going to go get Eagles? Or are you going to get a kilo bar?
Easy.
Are you going to what do you go searching for?
Easy. Early in my career, I was stressed out. I need this, I need that. I was buying stuff, paying premiums. Then I figured out, just buy the freaking deals. If you buy the deals, you're eventually going to get everything. You're going to one time get Eagles, you're going to another time get bars, another time you're going to get Constitutional, another time you might get some high premium stuff that's on a crazy deal, you know? If you buy the deals, you keep that dollar cost per ounce average lower, and you end up with everything anyways much cheaper. Like I bought some Coal Silver Morgan dollars, CULL, because they were the cheapest I could find, but they were still expensive, but I wanted them. And then fast forward a year, I ended up getting a bunch of Morgans for $16.50 a pop that were in great condition. I'm like, why did I spend $20 a freaking Morgan in horrible shape when I could have done this? So learn from my mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. Buy the deals. Let that dictate your buying.
So what it is isn't as important usually as how much it is.
Yeah.
Right? The cost.
As long as it's silver or gold, I'm buying the cost. Now, the one caveat to that is I will buy high premium silver simply to flip. I will not stack anything that's slabbed, anything that's in a box, packaging, because that takes up a lot of room. Believe it or not, 6,000 ounces of silver doesn't take up as much as you think it does. But if you have it in boxes and slabbed, it takes up a ton of room. But I will buy high premium silver to flip. And many people watching my channel, I put out alerts, but I only do alerts on what I think is a sure thing. And many people, like on one flip we did, they made $1,400. Another flip we did 900. And then what I do is I'll flip that coin, get all that extra currency, buy even more gold and silver. And you even did that recently too, didn't you? With what was that?
Yeah, with the 2-coin American Silver Eagle, the reverse proofs that just came out. Just got it in the mail actually yesterday. One of the online bullion dealers offered a deal and said, hey, you know, sell to us and more than double your money. So I paid $180 for it and sold it for $400. Now I'm noticing it's not even selling for that on eBay or anything. So I don't know if they're just going to take the loss or whatever. I was afraid because they said they could cancel the deal, but I couldn't. So I was really waiting for them to send me an email going, never mind.
No, you got paid. You're good. But let's pause here. This is a great time for, if you're watching this video, smash the like button.
Yeah.
Please subscribe to my man TB. He's got great content. Please, please, please. I know some of you aren't, and I'm talking to you right there.
Yeah, so and then there's another one. The same company offered a deal for the Morgan silver dollars coming out. The same thing, going to double the money. Just send them one of each one of those. I got 3 of each. I think I don't know. It's hard to remember. You know how it is. IS when you buy things, and you wait a couple weeks to get it in the mail. You get it in the mail. You're like, oh yeah.
I can't even remember. I'm like opening
Isn't that
boxes.
funny?
I'm like, what the heck is in this box? I don't even know.
Hey, I just got some. Oh yeah, that's right. I ordered that 3 weeks ago.
Did you see those 2 kilo bars I just unpacked? I got that. Weren't those things massive? Those things are cool.
Yeah,
you like them?
Yeah, oh yeah.
It was the Chiyu Chongwei stacker 1 kilos. Those things were epic.
Yeah, but with my stacking mentality, I probably wouldn't have paid the premiums. Now you're doing it. You're thinking you're going to be able to flip them, right?
I'm flipping them. There's only 999 of them.
Yeah, so.
That's 100% flip, but.
The fact they came with their own cases and stuff too, those are pretty cool.
100% flip, but I'm not going to lie. Super cool to hold in the hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe I'll think of an excuse to keep one. I don't know. We'll flip one and maybe I'll make that pay for both. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
So, I mean, I have always had the stacker mentality, and I do try to buy the cheapest I can find almost always, unless it's a flipping opportunity. So for me too, that's kind of, but I was talking earlier about getting some more bars mixed in, like I showed you that Scottsdale bar that my pocket piece and things like that. And just, so I do sometimes gear more towards a specific thing that I'm looking for, just to diversify my stack a little bit more. but I am always on the look for that cheap, the best deal all the time, because dollar cost averaging. I mean, it's just so important for your stack. So some people don't worry about it, but I do.
Yeah, big time. It'd be foolish not to.
All right, so let's talk about your channel for a minute. One thing about your channel is you do a lot of different things and cool things. I mean, I was talking to we had a family event yesterday, and I was talking to some people about coming to see you, and like, man, he used to, go to Egypt and ride in balloons and the Nile, just all these like cool things that you would do,
Yeah.
And, but yet now, recently you've done videos on masks and protection and different things to be safe. Preparedness. And so, are you planning to continue? Because those I thought were pretty good, and you're clearly educated on the topic. So,
yeah.
Is your channel not just about gold and silver thing, preparedness? You've got a lot of great stuff on there.
I've really been branching out. So how this all started is I was traveling, doing all this cool stuff, buying gold and silver, and then I watched a few videos online. The main person I saw was like Silver Slacker, and I'm like, well, I'd buy all the silver, ship it to my address in the U.S., and I come back and unbox it all. I'm like, well, shoot, I might as well make a few videos on that. So if you look at my channel, it was only unboxing videos.
Right.
But then I'm doing this epic stuff. I'm like, I have no one to share this with. I'm single. Mrs. IS, if you're watching, let me know. You could be the future Mrs. IS. But literally, I was doing all this cool stuff. I'm like, well, maybe people would like seeing me go barter and buy some of this stuff in the market and go to the Nile and ride a camel at the Great Pyramid, or do a hot air balloon in the Valley of the Dead Kings over the Nile River. So I started putting that out and people liked it. I'm like, okay, people like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, so I started doing more travel content. Then I started putting out videos of going to LCSs, got a good response. And then like my profession I work is like emergency management type stuff. So I'm like, well, maybe start talking about that. And I started talking about that and people liked it. So my channels really went from just an unboxing gold and silver channel to many things related to gold and silver. My travels that plug into that gold and silver acquisition. And now I'm plugging in kind of preparedness and even some security type stuff I've put in lately to kind of help people as well. I think people that subscribe to my channel subscribe for the journey, being an international stacker.
Yeah.
So I found that people do like this other content, and some people are going to like it, some people aren't. But for the people that do, I mean, it's extremely valuable information. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to continue to do that. I'm going to probably for the next couple 100 days. I've got a lot of travel plans, so I'm going to be hitting LCSs all across the United States, meeting other stackers. I've met a few stackers while I've been in. There's a lot of stackers and YouTubers in Michigan, believe it or not. So I'm having a fantastic time. This is the second time I've met this man, and he does not let me down. Always great conversation. So again, smash that like button.
Yeah, thank you. So I know you don't have a crystal ball, and I know that a lot of people don't like forecasting or predicting future cost of gold and silver. But one of the things, not necessarily spot pricing, but what do you think about these premiums? And again, I know you don't have any control over that, but are they ever going to come back down again? Because even with this recent drop in spot, it seems like the premium stayed up there, so you couldn't really go get a good deal on anything because they didn't drop the premiums.
As long as people are buying, those premiums aren't coming down. Silver and gold, I think, are still scarcer than they were pre-pandemic, pre-beer flu. So I think there's more demand right now. I think the premiums will stay up. I think by end of year, I think maybe, I was a bit more bullish beginning of the year, but I think maybe we hover around or below $30 an ounce for silver. We'll see. But if silver can break that, $29.50 to $30 range, we could see explosive upsides, because don't forget, the paper market controls the spot price. So there's like stop losses and puts, there's short in the market. So if you hit certain levels, it can short squeeze folks, like what we saw with the attempted silver short squeeze, but with AMC and these other things. So there could be catalysts in the market when it hits certain levels to propel it up or down. However, when you're into physical gold and silver, a lot of times, and we saw this back in 2008, we saw this at other critical times in history with gold and silver, at a certain point, the price for gold and silver becomes disjointed from the paper market, where spot price might be $16, but maybe you're paying $9 premium, right? And that's based on, from what I believe in seeing, my opinion, not a financial advisor, is that supply and demand. And if there's people running into it, like, again, 2008, gold and silver tanked when it first happened. And then people are like, okay, 2008, this is legit, like, we're in trouble. Let's put our money in something that it's not just gonna disappear overnight. So then they put it in gold and silver. So although the spot price might be low, if everyone's running to gold and silver and everyone's trying to buy it, it's supply and demand. The premiums are going to go through the roof. So just because gold and silver spot price is a certain price doesn't mean you're not going to pay more. So just remember that.
Do you remember just a few short years ago all the spot price deals that you could get? Like just about every online bullion dealer had buy 10 ounces for spot.
Thank God I did them all.
I know.
Thank God
I did too,
all.
but I don't know if we're ever going to get back to that again. I just, there's really no reason for them to do it, right? As long as people keep buying, why would they? Right?
I think we might be putting in a new bottom. And remember, like when I first started stacking, bottom was like 15, 16. But remember, demand for silver is only going to get more. And demand for gold is going to pick up a little bit because as we travel more into space, gold is the one metal that doesn't corrode, right? So if you're talking about circuitry for satellites or mission critical systems to like land rovers on other planets and stuff, gold is ideal for that. However, gold's extremely expensive, so silver is the most commonly widely used one. But I do think industrial demand will pick up a little bit for gold. But remember, as that demand increases, there's going to be less supply. So we might be putting in a new bottom, my friend. And it might be $9 or $6 or $4 premium over what the spot price is. You get what I'm saying? So the two aren't always technically correlated unless you're selling. Because if you're selling, they'll be like, oh, well, I'll pay your spot price. You know what I mean? But if LCSs or bullion shops really need, or online bullion shops really need gold and silver, they'll be willing to pay you some premium. They will.
Yeah. I'm curious if there was an event in your life that started you stacking. Was there one thing that happened that kind of clicked in your mind and said, I've got to start doing this? Or was it over time where you just kind of bought a few and then said, this is kind of cool? What really turned you into a hardcore stacker?
So I was overseas and I first got into cryptos. So I found out about Bitcoin and all that. And I really got deep into it. I bought a bunch of freaking miners from China and I lived in a compound out there. My electricity was free, so I plugged them in. I started mining Bitcoin. And I was mining Bitcoin, it was $300, $400 a coin. You know, I got an Ethereum and Litecoin, what is it, like in single and double digits. I did like really well in that. So I told a buddy, another contractor out there, American that I was working with about it. He's like, hey, let me tell you about stacking. I stack gold and silver and told me a little bit about it. So I remember going on Provident Metals for the first time, which I loved. I loved them before they sold. They were like my go-to. I remember going on there and being confused. It's like 239 over spot, this or spot. I'm like, what the F does all this mean, right? And then I reminded myself, so I started stacking a little bit because I'm like, oh, well, this makes sense because Bitcoin and all this is not technically tangible. Although you can argue, oh, I can put my keys in cold storage on paper, therefore it is. But I'm like, this is tangible, it has thousands of years of history. I went down the rabbit hole with Mike Maloney and all that doing research. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. So that's what got me into stacking, was getting, you know, my friend into cryptos and then vice versa. You know what I mean? So that's what really opened that door to me. And I'm glad that door that got opened, and I've been in it aggressively ever since.
So really, there's one person telling you about it that kind of turned you onto it, and from that one person, turned you into a stacker.
Exactly. And you would.
That's why we can impact others. We were talking earlier about how your channel can impact others,
well, you'd
right?
be shocked. I get messages all the time. Thank you so much. I found out about this during the beer flu pandemic. I found out about this, and that, and you know, got in. And that's all it takes is like just a message to get people into it. And the funny thing is I had actually seen a stacking video on YouTube before all this happened, maybe 2015 or 14. And I remember as a guy, and he had his stack on a table, and he's like, hey guys, I just want to let you know I quit. I'm not going to stack anymore. And he's like, psych, I'm going to keep stacking. And that's the only video I saw. I'm like, oh, that's weird, like bars of gold. I'm like, okay. And then I just didn't pay attention to it. But then when my buddy told me about it, that like clicked. You know, I'm like, oh, what is this?
And you've done some live streams in the past. Are you going to continue to do some plans for live streams? And
of course.
Probably not regularly.
I just pop them up when I can.
You just pop them up when you have time.
You know me, my life is crazy and demanding, so I'll do live streams whenever I can.
Sitting in a hotel room looking at the pools, looking for Mrs. IS, things like that, right?
Yeah, Silver Vacation. You ever see the video I put out? So one of the Silver Vacation videos, which is what he's referring to, I had brought a ton of constitutional silver with me because I wanted to make a live stream going through it all. And I put these things in suitcases. It must have been like 200 pounds each. I seriously nearly slipped a disc, like loaded in my car. I'm like, oh, I like couldn't stand up straight. I had to go to a chiropractor. Thank God it like fixed it. But like the silver nearly put me in the hospital.
You didn't fly with that, did you?
No,
I was gonna say.
no, I drove. I drove. I did it. I wanted to have, the content of messing with all my constitutional. It nearly cost me my spinal cord.
It is amazing how heavy that stuff can be. I'll tell you, one of those guardhouse boxes you were talking about, right, with the constitutional silver. I mean, a guardhouse box of quarters, that son of a gun, officially it's like 31 pounds, but it feels so dense. It's like you try to lift, it's like you're lifting a bag of salt or something. Like, holy smoke, this thing is heavy.
Well, that's why I laugh when people are worried about theft, because first off, you're never going to find my stack. Secondly, if you even get to try to look for my stack, you're not gonna have a good time if you catch my drift. But if all that fills and you find my stack, you know how long it would take to move all that?
Out of there.
And you'd literally need like a massive SUV to move it. Like you can't, if you put it in the back of a car, it's gonna be like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's heavy, but it doesn't take up as much space as you would think. 6,000 ounces doesn't take up nearly as much space as you would think.
But don't you have to wonder, back before they had machinery, high-lows, things like that? I mean, you just take like a bag of quarters and how heavy it is. How did they in the 1800s produce millions of coins and move them around and ship them? I'm probably horses and cars. I don't know,
Horses, mule trains.
but how the heck did they manage that kind of weight without, hydraulic type machinery to move that stuff? It's amazing what people can do when they want to do something, isn't it?
And people were hardcore back then. We're soft nowadays. Everyone had like calluses on their hands. People lifted and moved stuff. So something that might be extremely arduous for us today, maybe back then would have been difficult, but not impossible. So I think people were more conditioned for it, probably fitter, but I think they used a lot of levers and pulleys, and they used a lot of horses, and they used a lot of manpower, and they used a lot of trains.
That's why I wonder too, like we got a 1853, it's our only $1 gold coin. It's like gold, maybe smaller than a dime. It's like, how did they back in the 1850s manage such a small, I mean, that had to be a lot of money back then, right? That $1 gold coin. It had pockets probably with holes in them and things. You just wonder how they managed such small coins
I
back
think they
then.
had little pouches that they probably put inside their pants, hanging, so they're not getting
stick 'em
robbed.
in there.
They had special places to put it, and people metal detect in like colonial eras and stuff, because folks used to bury their coins in mason jars like on their property, keep them from getting robbed before there's really wide-scale banks and stuff. And a lot of people, just like today, didn't really trust the banks. I mean, it's a little bit more regulated nowadays, but back then, like, you could have banks go under and like you literally lose everything, and there's like no recourse. You know what I mean? You're like, oh man.
Yeah, so no, it's pretty cool though to think what they got done back then without all that stuff, because it's just amazing how heavy these precious metals can be. So anyway, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks for taking the time and catching up with me. I was afraid we might not catch each other, but appreciate you taking the time, and take care of yourself, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. My pleasure. And I guess I'll say, catch you on the next one.
Catch you on the next one.
Woo!
Take care.